Question number 1. Which of the following types of performance measures integrates financial performance, internal operations, learning and growth, and customer satisfaction? We know for sure financial, internal operations, learning and growth, customer satisfaction. It has to be balanced scorecard. It has 4 categories of performance measures, and here they are. C is the right option. Which of the following is not an external failure cost? Lost customer is an external failure. Warranty cost is an external failure. Liability claims, all these are the cost when the faulty goods are received by the customer. Such losses, such cost because of customer receiving damaged goods, these are called external failure cost. But tooling changes, no, this is not the external failure cost. It is the internal failure cost. C is the right option. The cost of scrap, rework, and tooling changes in a product quality cost systems are categorized as internal failure costs. We just discussed tooling changes, rework, scrap, they are all internal failure costs. B. An example of internal failure cost is maintenance. Wrong. Maintenance is a preventive cost. Inspection is a preventive cost. Rework, yes, rework is an internal failure. Product recall, this is very serious. This is external failure. The performance measurement tool generally associated with the display of information evaluating multiple dimensions of business outcomes is referred to as, look no further, balanced scorecard. Financial, non-financial, short-term, long-term, internal, external. Return on investment, primarily financial. Kaizen means continuous improvement. Yes, it is a concept that is closely related to business process improvement, but it is not itself a representative of multi-dimensional performance measure. No, this is not correct. Market value added, again, market value added does not have multiple dimensions of business performance. Hence, balanced scorecard is the right option. In a quality control program, which of the following is or are categorized as internal failure? Rework, yes, it's internal failure. Responding to customer complaints because of damaged goods, that is external failure. Statistical quality control for procedures, this is appraisal. So, the only option for internal failure is the first one, and that makes A to be the correct option. Well, fairly straightforward question. The 4 categories of cost associated with product quality cost are external failure, yes. Internal failure, yes. Prevention, yes. Appraisal, yes. Look no further. This is your right option. Training, no such thing. Warranty, no. Product liability, no. No, these are not the categories. So look no further. A is your right option. The total quality management process identifies each of the following as a cost of quality, except prevention cost, yes. Internal failure, yes. External failure, yes. Appraisal, yes. That's not here. But investment cost, no. This is not one of the categories. Which of the following is an example of internal failure cost? Lost customers, it is external failure. Testing is an appraisal cost. Tooling changes, yes, it's internal failure. And preventive maintenance, as the worst, it's prevention cost. So we were looking for the internal failure, and internal failure, C is the right option. Although there is no single format for the balanced scorecard, the report generally includes a variety of measurement associated with objectives classified by critical success factors. Critical success factors often include, remember, financial, non-financial, internal, external, short-term, long-term. But in the category A, option A, sales, net income, cash flows, return on investment, they are focusing entirely on financial performance. So, not the right option. Option B, shareholder satisfaction, customer satisfaction, vendor satisfaction, employee satisfaction, all satisfaction. What about money? We need to look at the financial aspect also. So this is only focusing on the non-financial factors, right? C, financial, yes. Internal processes, yes. Customer and human resource, absolutely. These are the 4 categories of critical success factors on the balanced scorecard. That is our right option. Last one, throughput and life cycle time. Yes, they are measures of internal business improvement, but they are not critical success factors. Which of the following techniques effectively measures improvement in product quality as a result of internal failure cost? Inspection of an in-process good. This is appraisal. Recording the number of products returned over time. This is external failure. Tracking the number of products reworked before they reach the customer. This is clearly internal failure. Our right option. And tracking warranty expense over time. This is external failure cost. C is the right option. Which of the following performance measures is non-financial? Percentage of defective products. Percentage of defective products. It is non-financial. Return on investments, it's financial. Gross profit margin, financial. Economic value added is financial. So, is the right option. The management of a company would do which of the following to compare and contrast its financial information to published information reflecting optimal amounts? Budgets, wrong. Budget is not a published standard. It is internal. It's internally developed standard, not external, not published. Incorrect. Forecast, again forecasts are internal predictions, so they are not published standards. Benchmark, yes. Benchmarking is the process we use to identify standards that define or quantify the critical success factor for organizations. So correct. Utilize best practices. This option may appear to be the correct one, but it is not. Why? Because utilizing best practices is not the pure comparison of data to externally published benchmarks. So rejected. What is the process by which products and services of a business entity are measured and evaluated relative to the best possible levels of performance? Best in class. Let us discuss the options given. Measuring the performance gap. No, because performance gap represents the difference between the current and desired standard. Current and desired. It does not involve evaluating products and services relative to the best possible levels of performance. So this is not the right option. Let us cut it out. Standard measurement. Wrong. Standard measurement does not involve comparison to others' best practices. It's your own standard set within the organization. Benchmarking. Yes, absolutely right. That's the correct option. Benchmarking involves identifying industry leaders, peers whose practices represent the best-in-class performance standard. That's the right option. And what about D? Variance management. Variance management basically is comparing your actual results to the budgeted results. So this is not what we are looking for. We are looking for the comparison with the best possible level of performance, the best in class. All of the following are appraisal costs except statistical quality checks. It is appraisal cost. Testing is appraisal. Inspection is appraisal. Employees training is not appraisal. If it is not appraisal, which is our right option, then what it is? It is preventive cost or prevention costs. Hence our right option. Which of the following methods involve comparing a company's internal processes that need to be improved to those of external companies identified as being best in class? That's just we have discussed a little while ago. Balanced scorecard? No, because balanced scorecard present matrix covering multiple performance dimensions within a company. Benchmark, we'll discuss that. Economic value added? No, because economic value added is used to determine whether performance is meeting standards. We need some external benchmark here. Performance measurement. Performance measurement involves collecting, assessing, collating data, both financial, non-financial, internal, external, short-term, long-term of an organization to determine whether its strategic goals are being met or not. So then it has to be benchmarking. Yes, Benchmarking involves a company taking its own business matrix and processes and comparing them to those of others that are considered to be superior, the best in class. So that makes a B to be the correct option. The quality control tool used to evaluate error rates and processes improvement issues in a manner that combines both a histogram and a line graph is referred to as fishbone diagram. Let me show you. This is the fishbone diagram. It doesn't involve any histogram. I don't see any histogram, nor do I see any line graph. So A is not the right option. Control charts. Let's discuss C first. Well, this is your control chart and I do not see any histogram or any line graph here as well. Kanban. Kanban is a Japanese term. It means tickets. It's a system, a workflow system within which the quantities consumed are replaced by new arrivals, new inputs so that the production process could be streamlined and there are no production disruptions. It has nothing to do with it. Then it has to be the Pareto diagram. That is right. And this is given right here. See, it takes both of these. Histogram is there as well as the line graph, both of them. So yes, that's the right option. Pareto diagram is your correct option. Quality programs normally include a number of techniques to find and analyze problems. The technique commonly used to analyze the source of potential problems and their locations within a process is called, yes, fishbone diagram, also called Ishikawa, also called root cause analysis. Let me show you. See, here it is. A fishbone diagram describes a process, the contributions to the process as shown by these arrows, and the potential problems that could occur at each phase of a process. So C is a right option. Which of the following is not an element of the manufacturing process typically presented on a cause and effect diagram fishbone analysis? Okay, remember manpower, machinery, methods, material, they are commonly identified elements of manufacturing process. But the manufacturing overhead, it is not an element of the manufacturing process, right? It is not something that we study in cause-effect diagram or fishbone analysis. Basically, manufacturing overhead, it's an allocated cost. Hence, this is not an element of manufacturing process. C is the right option. In recent years, much attention has been placed on product quality and total quality control. Which of the following items would not normally be considered a cost of quality? Okay. Cost incurred in detecting defective products during production. These are appraisal cost and it is cost of quality. B. Cost incurred in detecting defective products produced before they are shipped to the customer. It's again appraisal and it is the cost of quality. We are looking for the one that is not normally considered as a cost of quality. C. Cost incurred after defective products have been shipped to the customer and they are returned. Customers are unhappy. This is external failure and it is one of the costs of quality. Then what about D? Cost incurred in shortening production lead times and achieving on-time deliveries. Well, these are the measures of performance and not cost of quality. Hence, our right option. Which of the following is a financial measure of success in a balanced scorecard? Market share. Well, market share could basically be a goal, an objective or a tactic rather than a financial measure. Sales growth. Yes, sales growth is used as a measure of financial performance. That is true. Cycle time. Again, cycle time is an internal business process. On a balanced scorecard, we are looking for a financial measure. Staff morale. It's not a financial measure at all, but it's a component of human resource or learning or innovation measure. Hence, our right option is option B. The cost of statistical quality control in a product quality cost system is categorized as internal failure cost, no. Prevention cost, no. Training cost itself is a prevention cost, no. It is an appraisal cost. Remember, the statistical quality control, inspection, testing, they are appraisal costs. D is the right option. Which of the following is true regarding Pareto diagrams? A. They graphically display the impact of measuring goalpost conformance. Wrong. Wrong. We use control charts as a measure of conformance of operations within a standard range, which we call goalpost. We have an upper and lower limit. Let me show you. See, we have an upper limit, we have a lower limit. So our production should fall within the upper and lower bound, within this specification. So this is what you call the goalpost, upper or lower limit. So A is incorrect. They provide a framework for a manager to analyze the problems that contribute to the occurrence of defects. This is basically cause and effect diagram, fishbone analysis, Ishikawa, root cause analysis. We are looking for Pareto diagrams. See, quality control issues are displayed in order of least to most frequent. Now this is important, least to most frequent. This is wrong. This is wrong, because quality control issues are displayed in order of most to least in our Pareto diagram. This is totally in the opposite order. Then it has to be D. They display individuals and cumulative frequencies of quality issues, defects or problems. Yes, from most to the least. Hence, this is our right option. Okay, next. Quality programs normally include a number of techniques to find and analyze problems. The technique commonly used to determine zero defects and goalpost conformance is called, what we have just learned, control charts. Right? What about Pareto diagrams? Pareto diagrams represent an individual and cumulative graphical analysis of error by type from most to the least. We discussed this a little while ago. Not this. Fishbone diagram basically describes a process and various contributions to that process and the potential problems that could occur at each phase of a process. Not the one we are looking for in this particular question. And value chain analysis, this is way off. It's basically a flow chart that shows how the value is added at each link in the value chain, how the customer usefulness, customer satisfaction is added. This is off, way off. Controllable revenue would be included in a performance report for a profit center. Remember, profit center is responsible for revenues and cost, whereas cost center is responsible only for cost. So, controllable revenue would be included in the performance report of a profit center, yes. Cost center, no, and that makes C to be the correct option. Controllable margin is used as a refined measure of strategic business unit reporting that is best described as, let me show you and then we'll decide. This is your contribution reporting. Since we are looking for controllable margin, here it is. Controllable margin is calculated by taking your revenues, deducting variable costs and deducting the controllable fixed costs. So controllable margin is equal to revenue minus variable cost. That gives you contribution margin. And from this, if we deduct the controllable fixed costs, it gives us the controllable margin. And if we deduct direct fixed costs, which are non-controllable, we get the contribution by strategic business unit. And then if we allocate untraceable cost, head office, administration, legal department's cost, human resources, IT, then what we get is called the segment operating income. Right? So it hasn't yet been allocated. So that's how it goes. So here it is. Controllable margin is used as a refined measure of strategic business unit reporting that is best described as contribution margin net of controllable fixed cost. Those fixed costs that managers can impact in less than 1 year. Look no further. This is your right option. Under the balanced scorecard concept developed by Kaplan and Norton, employee satisfaction and retention are measures used under which of the following perspective? Not customer perspective, not internal business process, not financial. It's a part of learning and growth perspective, hence C. Responsibility accounting defines an operating center that is responsible for revenues and cost as a profit center. Yes, we know that profit center are responsible for revenues and cost. Revenue centers for only revenue. Investment centers are responsible for revenues, costs, and investments. And there is no such SBU as operating unit. We have 4 segregations: cost centers, revenue centers, profit center, and investment center. So we got A to be the correct option. Decentralized firms can delegate authority and yet retain control and monitor managers' performance by structuring the organization into responsibility centers. Which of the following organizational segment is most likely an independent business? When you say an independent business, that business will have control over its revenues, costs, and investments made in the business. So revenue center is responsible for revenues only, profit center for revenues and costs, cost center for just costs, and investment centers are responsible for all 3: revenues, costs, and investment. So that would make investment center to be a segment that's more like an independent business. D is the right option. Fairmount Incorporated uses an accounting system that charges cost to the manager who has been delegated the authority to make the decisions, incurring the cost. For example, if the sales manager accepts a rush order that will result in higher than normal manufacturing cost, then these additional costs are charged to the sales manager. It's not that it is charged against his salary or we deduct this amount from his salary. It's just shown on his performance report. So such additional costs are charged to the sales manager because the authority to accept or decline the rush order was given to the sales manager. This type of accounting system is called responsibility accounting. It's a system of accounting that recognizes various responsibility centers throughout the organization, who controls what, and he is made responsible for it. A is the right option. Strategic business units are classified into different types based on the responsibility levels assigned to their managers. Which SBU has the least amount of responsibility? Cost SBU is responsible for cost only. Revenue SBU is responsible for revenue. Profit SBU is responsible for revenues and cost both. And investment SBU is responsible for revenues, costs, and investments. So more likely you are going to go either for A or B. Let us discuss. I will go for A. Why? Because cost SBUs, they control the cost only. The level of cost incurred is in control. But the revenue SBU represents a greater responsibility than the cost SBUs. Cost control is comparatively much narrower than the control of revenue. So we can say which of these has the least amount of responsibility? A. Non-financial performance measures are often preferable to financial performance measures as a means of constructively motivating operational managers, since non-financial performance measures are not controlled by financial records. No, they are. They are. Financial performance measures are punitive. Punitive means they involve punishment. Financial performance measures are punitive as well as non-financial performance measures. They are equally punitive. Right? Remember, both of them are punitive. C. Non-financial measures are more easily associated with operational objective. This is the reason why do we select financial performance measures for our managers to motivate them. That's correct option. Why not D? Financial performance measures are not tied to operations. Wrong. They are. A successful responsibility accounting reporting system is dependent upon the correct allocation of controllable variable costs. Why variable costs only? There are other fixed costs that could be equally controllable by a particular level of management. Wrong. Identification of the management level at which all costs are controllable. Wrong. All costs are not controllable at one level. Someone above you controls some cost which you don't. Wrong. The proper delegation of responsibility and authority. Yes. Responsibility and authority are necessary for successful implementation of responsibility accounting. This is correct option. Why not D? A reasonable separation of costs into their fixed and variable components, since fixed costs are not controllable and must be eliminated from the responsibility report. This is wrong. Some fixed costs are controllable and someone can be made responsible for it. And in the long run, all costs are variable and hence are controllable at the same level. So this is incorrect. Quality programs that demand compliance with the most rigorous standard apply the concept of goalpost conformance. Well, goalpost offers you a range of acceptable limits. Your production should fall within 10 mm to 15 mm. See, this is not rigor. You have been given the range of acceptable results, not the exact specific measurement. Wrong. Absolute conformance. Yes, absolute conformance. It is the most rigorous standard of quality. It represents perfection. It represents ideal result. Why not C? Confirming cost. Confirming costs are preventive and appraisal costs, and non-confirming costs are internal and external failure. These are the costs of quality. We are talking about the standards here. Absolute conformance. Product quality related costs are part of the total quality control program. A product quality related cost incurred in detecting, mind the word, detecting individual products that do not conform to specification is an example of appraisal. Yes. Appraisal costs involve inspection, testing, maintenance of lab, statistical quality checks. So we got our answer B. Which of the following incentive designs will most likely encourage the use of non-financial measures by a manager? Tying incentives to the overall profit of the firm. No. That would be a financial result. We are looking for non-financial. B. Tying incentives to the manager's individual effort. Yes, this is something that would be most likely be non-financial. That's correct. That is correct. Tying incentives to the salary level of the manager. Well, it does not link performance to non-financial measures. We need a non-financial measure and it is not. And all of the answer choices can be equally effective. Wrong. B is the right option. The essence of responsibility accounting is developing performance reports, emphasizing costs and revenues that managers can control. Perfect. It's a perfect description of what responsibility accounting is all about. The focus is on revenues and costs that are within the control of the manager being evaluated. Managers should not be made accountable for those costs or those revenues which are not in their control. That's the perfect description of responsibility accounting. This is the essence of responsibility accounting. What about B? Allocating service department costs to production departments so that the production department's managers know all costs for which they are responsible. This is incorrect because we need to make only those costs chargeable to or identified with a particular manager over which he has control. Here, the production department managers have no control over the cost of service departments. They are outside of the manager's control. Incorrect. Determine who is to blame for unfavorable variances. Now, this is quite a misconception. Responsibility accounting relates to judging a manager based on revenues and costs that he controls. We don't use responsibility accounting for assigning blame for unfavorable variances. This is wrong. Then investigating all variances regardless of their status as a favorable or unfavorable. All variances should be investigated, but that is true whether A variance is favorable or unfavorable. It's an exception, must be investigated. But this is not what responsibility accounting represents. So that's why not our right option. So A is the one. Which of the following is one of the four perspectives of balanced scorecard? Just in time, no. Just in time is a system deployed where we produce only when there's a customer standing at the door. We use our resources when the customer is standing at the door. It's not one of the aspects of balanced scorecard. Innovation, yes, that's true. That is correct. Innovation, financial one, learning and growth. So benchmarking, no. Benchmarking basically is a technique used to identify standards that define quality. Wrong. Activity-based costing. Activity-based costing we discussed in our previous lectures. It's a cost assignment concept that uses activity levels as the fundamental cost objective. Wrong. Which of the following is an example of prevention costs? Lost customers, external failure. Testing, appraisal. Tooling changes, it's internal failure. Redesigning of the process, yes. These are prevention costs. D is the correct option. Okay, now which of the following is true regarding productivity ratios? Total productivity ratio, TPRs, consider all inputs simultaneously. That's true. As well as the prices of the inputs. That is true. This is the correct option. If you have gone through your text, you would know this is the right option. Why not B? Partial productivity ratios, PPRs, consider the quality and the price of single input. This is incorrect. PPRs are concerned only with the quantity of single input, quantity, material or labor, not price. That's why it's wrong. I cut price here. Okay, what about C? TPR, that is the total productivity ratios, is calculated as the quantity of output produced in a given period divided by the sales price of the output during the same period. This is wrong. We don't use output in the denominator. Rather, we use input divided by the cost of input, divided by the cost of input, not by the sales price of the outputs. Okay, what about D? PPR, that is partial productivity ratios, is calculated as the quantity of output produced divided by the cost of the single input used. Not the cost again. It is the quantity of the single input used. Hence, rejected. A is the right option. Which of the following is a true statement regarding non-financial measures of a process? They are best viewed as attention directors. Yes, that's correct. They are viewed as attention directors because they direct attention to potential errors. They direct attention to potential inefficiencies before poor financial results are produced. This is the right option. Why not B? They are best viewed as problem solvers. No, they are not problem solvers. They are not primary source of problem solving data. What about C? They are an effective substitute for financial measures. Well, not substitute. They are complements, good complements to financial measures, but they are not substitutes. And not all answers or all choices are correct here. Organizations focus on both financial and non-financial features of their operations to evaluate the degree to which they will be successful in their strategies. These financial and non-financial dimensions of their operations are sometimes referred to as, yes, critical success factors, which are classified into financial, customer, internal business process, and human resource innovation. B. Discount Superstores has adopted a strategy of becoming the low-cost leader for consumer products in the Northwest. The company defines its values in the marketplace through low prices and consistently measures its prices against those of its competitors. Cost leadership. The location of these measures or measurements would most likely be classified and summarized in which section of the discount balance scorecard? Financial? No. Internal business process? No, we don't see any internal business process here. Learning and innovation? No, it's customer. Measurement of customer value, most likely to be included in the customer section of the balance scorecard, the above information. So that's C. Performance reports should be formatted and designed to meet organizational needs. Yes, no doubt about that. In this regard, performance reports normally include all of the following except exceptional items that are controllable. Yes, included in the performance report. Specific time horizons? Yes, would be included in the performance report. Are user focus? Yes. Strategic plans? No, they are not included in your performance report. Why? Because they are long-term in nature. Performance reports are much more specific and short-term oriented. So a performance report would not normally include strategic plans. So that makes D to be the correct option. In year 2, a manufacturing company instituted a total quality management program, producing the report shown below. Prevention cost in year 1, 200 increased to 300, 50% increase. Appraisal cost went up from 210 to 315, 50% increase. And as a result, internal failure fell from 190 to 114, 40% decrease. External failure fell from 1200 to 621, 48% decrease. This is amazing. On the basis of this report, which of the following statement is most likely correct? An increase in the conformance cost, which is the sum of prevention and appraisal, resulted in higher quality product, therefore resulted in decrease in the non-conformance cost. And remember, internal failure and external failure, they are your non-conformance cost. This is absolutely right option. You need to look no further. There is no further point in reading any of these options. It perfectly explains the numbers and what has happened over the period. Exactly the similar question we have just done. Your prevention cost went up by 50%, resultantly your internal failure, external failure fell by 40 and 48% respectively. So what we can conclude, which of the following statement regarding report is most likely correct? Same like the previous one, an increase in conformance cost, that is your prevention and appraisal, they are conformance cost, resulted in a decrease in the non-conformance cost. Yes, there is a decrease in our non-conformance cost. Internal failure and external failure, they are our non-conformance costs. B is the correct option. Listed below are selected line items from the cost of quality report for Watson products for the last month. Rework, it is considered as an internal failure cost. Equipment maintenance, it is considered as prevention cost. Product testing, it's an appraisal cost. And the product's repair, this is the internal failure before the product reaches the customer's hands. What is the total of prevention and appraisal cost? This is prevention, this is appraisal. If you add these two up, what you get? 1940. D. As a part of a benchmarking process, a company's cost of quality for the current month have been identified as follows. Employees training, it is considered as a preventive cost or prevention cost. Products recall, bad, external failure, non-conformance. Scrap, internal failure. Quality inspectors, appraisal, product testing. Preventive maintenance, prevention. Suppliers education expense, prevention. Materials inspection expense, appraisal. Processing product returns, bad, very bad, too bad, external failure. What amount is the company's prevention cost for the current month? Employees training is preventive cost, prevention costs. Preventive maintenance, prevention. Suppliers education, prevention. If you add all these, the total should be 20,000 plus 19,500 plus 17,500, a total of 57,000. B. Fabro Incorporated produced 1,500 units of product RX6 last week. The input to the production process for product RX were as follows: 450 pounds of material at this rate, 300 pounds of Z at this rate, and 300 labor hours at this rate per hour. What is the best productivity measure for the first line supervisor in Febro Incorporated production plant? Productivity is equal to total units produced. You can't take pounds of A or Z, you need to take the labor hours. That will give you 5 units per labor hour. That's the measure. 5 units per labor hour. This is the right measure of productivity, the best measure of productivity in the given situation. Hence, A is the correct option.